the Castle Doctrine, and I'm sure you're going to have a ton of questions on what ifs. What if I did this? Am I allowed to do that? And we'll cover that, but keep in mind the what if questions are pretty open to interpretation because there's so many different situations and scenarios. So we'll save questions till the end, questions about what you're going to learn tonight, and then I'll open myself up to questions about what's going on in Harrisburg or any other concerns you may have that I may be able to answer for you. But really, I hope we learned something tonight because, quite frankly, the more that we know about Pennsylvania laws, the more we can protect ourselves and protect those laws. I'm a defender of the Second Amendment, always have been and always will be, and I take a lot of criticism in Harrisburg for doing so. I'm a Democrat, and there's not many Democrats fighting for the Second Amendment, but I know where I came from. I know how I was raised. It's not the same as living in Philadelphia. It's not the same as Allegheny County. We grew up here in Cambria County. I was shooting a gun as a little kid. When I say 5, 6 years old, my dad had me in the woods. He was helping me, but we were shooting guns together back then. And it wasn't even a concern. Nobody even raised an eyebrow. And many of you know what that was like because it's just how we were raised here. And I'm never going to forget how I was raised or who I represent. No matter what political party, all of that is nonsense. We stand together as a community and we defend the rights of the Constitution. And that's where I stand, and that's why we put these presentations on, because I want everyone here to know what their rights are as a gun owner, and I want you to live within the laws of Pennsylvania because that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I'll turn it over to Tom Owens. He's been doing these presentations for us for several years, 5, 6 years. It's always informative. He's one of the best people to present this information, and he's a local guy, so I'll turn it over to him and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Frank. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. First question, how many people here own a firearm? Really? My kind of people. How many of you have had some type of formal training with your firearm though? A few, right? All right. We're going to talk about some things and a little bit about me. My name's Tom Owens. I'm a police officer. I've been in law enforcement for about 30 years. January will be 30. Still not as long as John.
Almost.
Right? So for 30 years I've been in law enforcement. Some of the things that I was able to do, my first 22 years I worked for the city of Johnstown. I retired from Johnstown as a detective sergeant. I ran their detective bureau for about 15 years while I was with the city of Johnstown. Retired from there, I went to work for the district attorney's office as a chief county detective. I left there and went to work for Stony Creek Township where I am currently. We patrol not too far from here. We patrol Daisy Town. I was one of the founding members of the SWAT team here in Cambria County, and back then it was the Johnstown SWAT team, and we grew as the commander of the team. I grew the team to be a county-wide team so that we had police officers throughout Cambria County that were SWAT trained. I retired from there from SWAT in 2021 and turned it over, and now I come out and I talk to people. All right. I was also, for a period of time, I worked as a sheriff's deputy with Cambria County as well. I've been a police firearms instructor for about 20 years. During that period of time, I qualify and train police officers and cadets in the police academy, but I also train citizens, the average citizens. I do concealed carry classes through the Fraternal Order of Police. We do them once a month. From May until October, we hold a class. So we'll talk a little bit about the training that I do. I've literally trained hundreds and hundreds of people in firearms. So some of the things we're going to talk about is training opportunities. And if you decide to take my class, I can get you information on our classes. But If not, you can take other training, but there's certain things that should be in that training. We're going to talk about mindset. If you decide that you're going to concealed carry, some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you decide to do that. We'll talk about locations where you can't carry your firearm, where you're breaking the law if you take your firearm into those areas. And a lot of times, you know, when we go to get our driver's license, they give us a book, right? And we study the book knowing the driving laws so that we understand it. And then we got to go take a test. Well, there isn't such a thing in Pennsylvania for firearms owners. You just basically go up to the courthouse, pay $10, get a concealed carry license without really knowing the laws. So each and every one of you came here for a reason. And that's to start to understand some of the laws in Pennsylvania and some of the things you can and cannot do with your concealed carry. We're going to talk about what if you have contact with law enforcement and you are carrying your firearm. How should you respond to that? All right? As well as if you were traveling, if you're going somewhere and you want to take your firearm with you, we'll talk about that. So one of the first things we'll talk about is a class. And this is the class that I do. It's through the Fraternal Order of Police. Again, we do them, we used to start in April, but now the academy class is on our range through April, so we start them in May. So we do them once a month, starting in May, going up until October. Now, we've literally trained hundreds of people in that class, and people keep asking for the next level because it is a basic level. So we're going to start this year. So whether you take my class or you take someone else's class, some of the things that it should touch on is firearm safety. Teaching you how to be safe with your firearm, how to handle your firearm, how to store your firearm, things like that. You know, those safety issues that it comes with your firearm ownership. It should cover the nomenclature. Tell you what pieces and parts and how does this firearm work. That should be a topic of training. Shooting fundamentals, obviously. How do you shoot this thing? How do you sight it? How does it work? All right. So whether you take my class or somebody else's class, that's what it should cover. Now our class is kind of special because we talk a lot about laws because it's being taught by law enforcement. And generally, when we do our concealed carry classes at the FOP, we get a representative from the district attorney's office that actually teaches you the Castle Doctrine. We're going to go over the Castle Doctrine and stand your ground, but understanding the law, understanding where you can carry, where you can't carry, what if I have to use my firearm, when can I use my firearm, those are all things that should be talked about as well. So now we'll talk about mindset. If you decide that I'm going to start carrying my firearm, I'm going to get a concealed carry license, I want to carry my firearm with me. Some of the things that you need to think about. If you choose to carry as much as possible. As a law enforcement officer, I can say myself and every police officer that I know, we want citizens to be able to protect themselves. We can't be everywhere. All right? And it's always been my saying that if you can legally own a gun, you should own a gun. And you should carry your gun. All right? A lot of bad things happen in the world nowadays. I know myself, I don't go anywhere without a gun. And it's not because I am paranoid. All right? But I couldn't live with myself if something bad was happening and I couldn't do anything to stop it. So everywhere that I go, I try to carry a gun with me. You know, whether I'm going to church, Walmart, we'll talk about Walmart, right? I go to Walmart, I'm packing 2 or 3. But, you know, carry as much as possible. And there's a lot of people that maybe you're wherever you work, they don't want you to carry a firearm, they don't want you to possess a firearm, all right? But carry as much as you possibly can, because the day that you need it is the day you won't have it, all right? We talk about don't carry a firearm if you're not prepared to use it. Okay? Why would you have something, if you say to yourself, if you're one of those people who say, I could never shoot someone, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're that person who says, I could never shoot somebody, don't carry a firearm. Because if you carry your firearm and you're not prepared to use it, somebody is going to take it off of you and use it against you. All right? And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're the person that says, I could never do it, it's not meant to intimidate people. It's not meant to scare people. All right? And really, people shouldn't know you have it until you really need it. Until you're at that point where I got to use it. All right? So don't carry it unless you're prepared to use it. Don't let it make you reckless. If you're one of those people that I put my gun on and now I'm going to the bad side of town and I'm going to go pick a fight, right? Don't let it make you do something you normally wouldn't do. All right? Don't let it make you reckless. If you're going to carry, carry legal. Make sure that you know where you can carry it and where you can't carry it. Make sure that you have your permit up to date. Make sure it's a registered firearm that you're not going to have any issues with. All right? Know what you're doing with it. And that's why it's important. Again, when we get our driver's license, we got to take a test. We got to go out, we got to drive, we got to practice. And then at the end of the day, we got to go take a driving test. But we don't have to do that with our firearms. All right? But know what you're doing with it. If you've had some military training or you've been around firearms all your life, it never hurts to get educated a little bit more. All right? It never hurts. And you guys are showing it right now, just being here. You want to learn something. All right? So know what you're doing with it. Understand the laws. How many of us sit down and look at the crimes code or the firearms code and read it and understand it? Anybody here ever do that? Frank's got them back there. They're about this thick. Right? So again, getting some training, and we're going to talk about a lot of the things tonight. We're going to talk about stand your ground and the Castle Doctrine, and you'll have a little bit more of an understanding about it and what it's all about. Another thing when we're talking mindset is carrying an adequate firearm. So what do I mean by adequate? Is it the caliber? No, it's not about the caliber. It's about a firearm that's going to function and function properly when you need it. So I wouldn't suggest, if you're going to conceal carry, that you get Grandpa's black powder revolver. Right? Because you never know. If it gets wet, it might not go off. Right? So getting a good firearm that's going to function. And I've seen in my concealed carry classes that I've done with civilians, I've seen people come there with firearms that aren't going to function. You know? That halfway through the course, the firearm breaks. Or it misfires, or it doesn't work. So if you're going to carry a firearm, make sure you got a good firearm, something that you can rely on. Your life may depend on it, right? So you want to make sure that this thing is going to function. And it ain't about caliber. Anybody here got a 45? You know what I say about guys with a 45, right? No. They're compensated. Because it's a big gun. You don't need a big gun. You need a gun you're comfortable with. You need a gun that you can perform with. Something that fits you. And it could be a 45 or it could be a 22. All right, which is a smaller gun. So that's what we mean by an adequate firearm. Use common sense. Right? Just use common sense. If you ask Frank, all of our laws in the state of Pennsylvania are written off of what a reasonable and prudent person would do under those circumstances. It's common sense. All right? So we want to make sure that we use common sense as a firearms owner. We want to be a responsible firearms owner. And everybody here obviously is, because you want to learn. Right? So you want to be a responsible firearms owner. you want to be good at conflict resolution. Do you know what I mean by conflict resolution? Is there anybody in here who just loses their shit as soon as somebody goes against them? Is there anybody here like that? Come on. They'll come up to me afterwards and tell me, yeah, I'm one of those. But no, you got to be good at conflict resolution. You never want to have to use your firearm. You never want to use it, right? It's not like you're out looking for a reason to use your firearm. So you got to be good at conflict resolution. You got to be that person who can walk away from an argument without losing your shit. All right? So it's not for somebody who's a hothead. It's not for that person that as soon as there's some kind of conflict, they just lose it. Those people shouldn't be carrying guns. All right? I talked about this earlier. It's not meant to intimidate people. So if you think you're going to carry your firearm so that I can scare somebody, that's the wrong reason to carry it. People should never even know you have it until, I said as before, until I need to use this thing. All right? So it's not meant to intimidate. It's meant to defend a life, whether it be your life or someone else's life. That's what they're meant to do. Brandishing your firearm. Now, again, if you're concealed carry, it should be hidden. It's allowed to be hidden. You don't have to have it visible. But as soon as you brandish it, it's almost like you're using it. All right? So you need to be at the point where I'm going to need this thing before I show it. I like to use the common sense thing when it comes to brandishing. I grew up in East Conemaugh. Everybody knows where that's at. It's right down over the hill, right? I'm the youngest of 9 kids. We had a baseball team. Now, we didn't have all these PlayStations and all this other stuff when I was growing up. We got home from school, we changed our clothes, and you were out the door playing until supper time. Right? Supper time, you better be at the table. 9 kids, you ain't eating if you ain't there. So, our game was kickball. We loved to play kickball. And the neighborhoods would come to our yard. We had a big yard. And they would come to our yard, and we would play kickball in our yard. And over the fence, into the mean lady's yard, that was a home run. Right? Me being the youngest and the smallest, I was always the one that had to go over the fence to get the ball. And I think she had sensors in her lawn. Because as soon as my feet hit the other side, she would be out on the porch. Now, she never came out with a firearm, but she did come out with a broom. All right? So, if she would have come out with a firearm, would have she been in some trouble? Probably. But a broom back then, it was okay. She was old, she couldn't move too quick. So when you brandish that firearm, when you show it, that's a show of force. And you'll see later on when we start talking about the stand your ground, why brandishing your firearm could create a problem for you. All right? So we'll talk about that a little bit later once we get into that. Pennsylvania is an open carry state, which means you can walk down the street like that guy, and that's how I go to Walmart. He's got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them on. But you can walk down Main Street like that and you are not breaking the law as long as you can legally own a gun. All right? So again, Pennsylvania is what they call an open carry state. I can walk down the street like this and I do not need a license to do it. I don't need a permit. All right? As long as my firearm is visible. Problems become, it draws attention, right? If you see a guy walk into Sheets like that, what are you thinking?
Gonna rob the place.
Something bad's gonna happen, right? Because a lot of the public, unlike you guys, because yous are all gun owners, a lot of the public, as soon as they see a gun, they automatically start thinking it's a bad guy, right? So you draw a lot of negative attention. You also have retention issues. If I'm not paying attention to what's going on around me, and I have this firearm right out there in the open, somebody could try and take it from me, right? So you have retention issues. You have the ability to keep your firearm on you is reduced because somebody could come up and take it off of you. In Pennsylvania, if you enter a vehicle, you now need a concealed carry license. If that guy gets in a vehicle like that, he now needs a concealed carry license because the law says once you get into a vehicle, it's now concealed. The only way you can transport that without a concealed carry license is you have to take the firearm, you have to unload the firearm. You have to put the firearm in one location in the vehicle and the ammunition in another. Then you can transport it legally. All right? Entering private property or private businesses. Some businesses can restrict you from coming in with a firearm. Walmart is one of them. If you ever noticed in front of Walmart, they have a little sign there that says you're not permitted to bring firearms into this location. If you remember a few years ago, there was a shooting at a Walmart in Texas. And shortly after that happened, Walmart came out with their policy of no open carry in Walmart. That's always been their policy. It's always been their policy. So if you would go into Walmart like that, are you breaking the law?
No. Yes.
That's open carry, yeah.
You're not breaking the law.
That's a policy.
You're breaking Walmart's policy about no firearms permitted in there. All right? So you're not breaking the law. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the places where you can carry and where you can't carry. So tell me, what is the benefit to an open carry?
Trouble concealing?
What's that?
Oh, but if you have trouble concealing, you have like your dress right now.
Yeah, that could be.
Your shirt tucked in.
I can untuck my
Yeah,
shirt.
you can untuck.
I can carry with a different holster.
Yes.
All right, something that conceals the firearm a little bit better, right? So, yeah, there's really no benefit to open carrying. If you can get a concealed carry license, why wouldn't you do that and be able to conceal it? Wouldn't you agree? Okay, we talked about those no weapon signs. You go to Walmart, you go to the mall. Where else are they? There might be other places that have them. I don't have to worry about it too much. I can take my firearm wherever I want. But there may be other places where you're not permitted, or the owner doesn't want you to have a firearm in there. So there may be those signs. And again, you're breaking that person's policy or that business's policy. You're not breaking the law. Now, if they should see you have that firearm and somebody from Walmart comes up to you and says, hey, you can't have that firearm in here, you have to leave. What do? You leave.
You leave.
Right? Because if you don't leave, now you're breaking a law. You're trespassing. All right? So, where can I carry? These are the places you cannot carry. That if you're carrying your firearm in these locations, you're breaking the law. The prohibited places would be federal buildings. So what federal buildings might we come in contact with?
Post office.
Post office is a federal building. Not permitted to carry in a post office. You're breaking the law. if you carry a firearm into the post office. Social Security office. Federal court building downtown. All right? Those places are going to have a big sign on the door that are going to say, if you enter here with a firearm or some type of weapon, you're breaking this law. All right? So we never want to carry into those locations. Courts. Not just the federal court, but all courts. You can't carry into Cambria County Courthouse. If you go to the Cambria County Courthouse and you have a firearm, you can come in the first door into the breezeway. If you look off to your right, there's a stack of black lockers. Take your firearm over, put it in the locker, lock it up, put a key in your pocket, and you can go do your business. When you come out, you unlock the locker, you take your firearm, and you leave. All right? And a lot of courthouses are like that. I don't think the Social Security office or the post office has those facilities, so you're going to have to secure it in a vehicle till you temporarily go in there.
What about local government offices, not federal?
Well, district magistrate's offices is considered a court.
Okay.
So if you're going to a district magistrate's office, you can't carry. And when you say local government, like if you go to City Hall, or that's fine, that they're not included. It's just federal buildings. All right? Schools. K through 12. Kindergarten through 12th grade, whether it be private or public school. You can't take a firearm into those locations. Another thing when it comes to schools, it includes the real property. And what we mean by the real property is the parking lot, the football field. All right? Sorry. So it includes the football field, the parking lot. Now I remember when I was going to school, just like Frank had said, you'd have your deer rifle hanging in the back of your pickup truck. So as soon as school was out, you went hunting, right? Can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. You can't have it in a school or on school property. Do you see colleges and universities there?
No.
College and university, you're not breaking the law if you take it onto a college campus or a university campus. You're breaking their policy, because I'm sure they have one. But you're not breaking the law. All right?
Can they ask you to leave?
They ask you to leave, you leave.
Okay.
Can you be found of causing a civil disturbance by carrying it? You can be prosecuted under other laws than firearm.
No,
Okay.
no. If you're just merely possessing a firearm on a place where you shouldn't, a place that doesn't want you there to have it, you're not, as long as they tell you leave, I'm leaving, and you leave. All right? So, no, you're not. You couldn't be arrested for disorderly, or you're not being disorderly. You're not doing anything like that. All right? Now, if you stand there and start arguing with them and you pull it out, then you got some problems. Right? Airports. Airports is another place, but it's beyond a security checkpoint. You can go to the airport. If you got somebody coming in, you're going to pick them up, you go to the arrivals, you can go inside the airport, you can wait for them. You can have your firearm with you. You're not breaking the law. All right? It's only when you go through the security checkpoint. You can't have a firearm on you.
What if they have a sign up?
What's that?
What if the airport has a sign?
Oh yeah, they're going to have a sign. And then you're going to go through the security
Well,
checkpoint where they're
They're supposed to have a sign on the front door, no firearms.
that they don't want them, they don't permit them there.
Yeah.
You're only violating the law if you try to go past security checkpoint. All right? If you try to board a plane with a firearm on. Now, if they have a sign there that says no firearms permitted here, unless they're quoting a law, unless they're saying you're in violation of this section, if you enter, then no, you can enter. All right? Military bases. And we'll talk about if you want to travel with your firearm and you're going to fly, you can do that. You can do it. All right? Military bases is another one. You're not permitted on a military base with a firearm. And you're going to have a check station coming onto the base. You're not permitted to have it on there. You're violating law if you transport a firearm onto a military base. All right? And again, we talk about those private property owners that can restrict persons carrying firearms onto their property. They have the right to do that. Me personally, if I were you, I'd shop somewhere else. Right? Next thing we're going to talk about is law enforcement contact, and I know that's kind of hard to read that up there, but in the state of Pennsylvania, you are not required by law to inform me as a law enforcement officer that you have a concealed carry weapon on you. You're not required by law to do that. Now, I would suggest, if I'm getting you out of the car and I'm asking you if you have anything on you I need to be concerned with, I would probably say something, right, rather than have me find it. But there's no law that says if I have interaction with you, you have to tell me that you have your concealed carry or you have a concealed gun on you. It's a good idea, because you don't want me to find it inadvertently, right? So what I teach people to do now, any of you guys drive on Bedford Street up there by Carmen's Tire? You know, the tractor place there? You guys drive through there? Yeah, that's a place that sometimes I run traffic there. So if I'm sitting there and I'm running traffic and it's 35 mile per hour there, nobody does 35. Right? If I'm running traffic there and I should happen to pull you over for speeding, how should we interact with each other? Because most good citizens are going to want to let me know that they have their firearm with them, right? You don't say, I have a gun. Because the gun word raises our senses. All right? Automatically, because you'll see if you ever watch TV, Cops or whatever the new shows are nowadays, you know, if a police officer spots a firearm, he's going to say gun, because it alerts us right away. Mm-hmm. All right? So you don't want to use that word. I have a gun. Simply present your concealed carry license with your driver's license. They're about the same size. And if you just put them in the same place, so that when I pull you over, you're handing me your concealed carry license and your driver's license together. Without saying a word, I know you have a firearm with you. You're not somebody I'm worried about. I want you to have your firearm. I want you to be able to protect yourself. All right? So without saying a word, I now know you're a concealed carry person and you have your firearm with you. I may ask you where it's at. And if you've ever taken one of my classes, your response is going to be, it's on me. Right? Because it ain't no good in my glove box. It ain't no good underneath my seat. Right? You should say, I have it on. And I'm going to tell you, you keep yours where it is, I'll keep mine where it is. You don't show me yours, I won't show you mine. All right?
So, previous training I had, and they said going through a state like Ohio, which is a right to notify state. So if you're a resident of Ohio, that police officer has pulled you up, he knows you have a concealed carry. I'm Pennsylvania, I can legally go through that state. If he stops me, he has no idea that I have a concealed carry because that computer does not sync with the databases, and I don't think in Pennsylvania they even...
We have a database. I can tell you, it's not something I'm instantly going to get, but I can look up and see if you have a concealed carry license, yes.
So the question was, are you required?
In those states?
Yes.
I would say, and we're going to talk about traveling.
I'm sorry.
We're going to talk about traveling, but I would say know the laws where you're going. You know what that state's law is if you're traveling through there?
It's not the simplest thing.
No, it's not. It's not. All right? But with us, you're not required by Pennsylvania law to tell me that you're possessing a firearm or you have a concealed carry license. You're not required to. But this is a good way to tell me without everybody getting their panties all untucked, right? Hand me your concealed carry license with your driver's license, I automatically know. And I'll tell you another secret. I teach police officers the same thing, all right? I teach the recruits in the academy that are coming out, they're going to be those traffic Nazis. You guys drive through Conemaugh lately? Right? I'm afraid to drive through Conemaugh. But I teach them the same thing. I teach them that if somebody hands you your driver's license and your concealed carry license, that person is armed. Don't get all worked up about it. All right? Those are good people. I'm not worried about you. All right? You're exercising your right. If for some reason your wallet is in your glove box with your firearm and I can't present it, then you keep your hands on your steering wheel and you use the phrase up there, I'm licensed to carry. Not using the gun word, I'm licensed to carry. The officer should say, where's it at? You tell him where it's at and let him dictate what's going to happen. He may want to take the firearm for his safety at that point until the encounter is done, and he should give it right back to you. All right? There should be no reason for him to keep it. So ask him, how does he want to deal with this? If it's me, don't show me yours, I won't show you mine. All right? Okay, if you have your cell phone, you might want to take a picture of that little website up there, www.pafoa.org. It's a very good site if you're going to be traveling, where you can learn some of the laws of the other states, just like he said in Ohio. In Ohio, according to him, I don't know that to be fact, but according to him, in Ohio, you have to inform law enforcement if you're carrying. All right?
By the way, they set the sites that tell you that.
That site doesn't say it?
It tells you whether you're legal to carry in that state. It doesn't tell you the laws of that state.
Okay.
That's what makes it so difficult.
And that's your responsibility as a gun owner. If you're going to travel, understand, and we're going to talk about it, understand what the laws are in other states. If you're traveling, if you're in Pennsylvania, you're fine if you understand Pennsylvania laws. But once you leave Pennsylvania, once you go somewhere else, the laws can be completely different. All right? If you look...
Is that an old image? Because I don't believe Florida no longer recognizes our...
I believe Florida still does.
They do.
They do.
We're from Florida.
We lived in Florida for 12 years.
You live there, that's the difference? Is that your residency?
Yeah, but that it was.
It's reciprocity. It works both ways.
When they came out, thank you, when they came out and said that you don't even need a license in Florida to carry.
It's a constitutional state, right?
I believe they said Pennsylvania does not apply anything.
I will research that. I don't know that for sure, but I'll research that. But this is the most up-to-date one that I have. All right? So if you look at it, and again, it changes depending on who the Attorney General is for your state and the Attorney General for that state. All right? They can, because the Attorney Generals have to agree to reciprocity, to where we're going to recognize yours if you recognize mine. But if you look there, Pennsylvania is that green state up there, right? If you look at all the blue states, they should have reciprocity with Pennsylvania. So your concealed carry license should be good in all of those states. If you look at the red states do not recognize Pennsylvania concealed carry license. All right? They don't recognize it. So if you're going to New Jersey, you can't carry your weapon concealed, and you would have to carry it like you would if you didn't have a concealed carry license in Pennsylvania, which means the weapon would have to be unloaded. It would have to be in one compartment, the ammunition in another compartment. Okay? Same thing with Maryland. Maryland's the same way. So if you're leaving Pennsylvania and you're going to North Carolina to the beach, and you're driving, Once you get to the Maryland line, you have to stop your vehicle, unload your firearm, put your firearm in one location, your ammunition in another location, drive that 15 or 20 minutes or so, however long you're there in Maryland. Once you get to the other side, you can load up your firearm, because now you're in Virginia, which recognizes it.
This is very difficult because you go into a state like Maryland, you have to travel a list of routes. The only 3 reasons you could stop are food, fuel, restroom. If you have a flat tire, you just violated their law because it's not an acceptable reason to stop. It's not stated in the law. It's insane trying to figure out this stuff.
So my suggestion is, you drive into West Virginia. Might take you a little bit longer, but you completely avoid Maryland altogether. All right? But it's important that if you're going to travel, you know what the other states' laws are. And obviously you educate yourself on different laws in different states. All right? But if we're going to travel, we need to understand that. We need to train ourselves, because in New York and in New Jersey, they have magazine capacities, which means how many rounds of ammunition this magazine is allowed to hold. It's not how many I have in it. It's how many it will top out at. All right? And the mere possession of a magazine that can hold more rounds than they allow you to hold is a violation of their law. Or in New Jersey, if you have hollow point ammunition, that's a violation of their law. All right? So, again, if you're traveling, make sure you know and understand what the laws are in the state that you're going to, if you're going to take your firearm with you. All right? Any questions? And by the way, the only place in the state of Pennsylvania you're not permitted to open carry is in Philadelphia. Yeah, believe it or not. Philadelphia is the only place in the state of Pennsylvania. They're a first-class city. They can write some of their own laws. And in Philadelphia, you have to have a concealed carry license to carry a firearm. You can't open carry like you can everywhere else.
Is the permit from here good in Philadelphia?
Yeah, you're still in Pennsylvania. I think we should give Philadelphia, and I've been talking to Frank trying to get him to do it. I think we should give Philly to New Jersey. Right? Frank's trying to introduce it, but nobody will let him do it. No, but again, in Philadelphia, you're not permitted to open carry. You have to have a concealed carry license in Philly. Now in Philadelphia, it's not like going to Cambria County Courthouse to get a permit. I've known some people from that area who have tried to get permits. They only issue so many per day, if they're issuing any that day. All right? So it's a long process. It may take you weeks or even months to get your permit in Philadelphia. All right? So again, Frank, see if we can't give that to New Jersey. All right? We don't really need it. Would save a whole lot of money. Any other questions?
I have a comment. A couple years ago, I was going to the other side of Ohio from Pennsylvania. I was driving kind of aggressively. When I passed across like that, and a cop picked me up. And I was a nice guy. I'd give him my military ID, my driver's license, and my gun on it. And he let me go.
And if you're speeding on Bedford Street, and I pull you over, and you hand me your concealed carry license and your driver's license, and I ask you, where's it at, and you say it's on me, I'm going to let you go too.
Yeah.
All right?
Did I write that down?
Yeah, you can write it down. You can hold me to it. Any questions on that?
Do you carry that in a bar?
Yes. And again, I said these are the places that prohibit. And there's a lot of rumor out there. There's a lot of we don't know. Can I carry in church? Absolutely. Can you carry in a bar? Yep. There's no law in the state of Pennsylvania that says you can't carry in a bar. Now, I would suggest don't get all hammered up. Because you're probably going to do something stupid, right? And then you do something stupid, then you're going to have to face the consequences. So no, there's no law in Pennsylvania that says I can't carry to church, I can't carry in a bar. The only places were those places that I listed. Federal buildings, courts, schools, K through 12, right? Airports, military bases. Those are the places that are prohibited by law.
You can go in the bar.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that was back in the day when I was young, even before I was old enough to have a license, a concealed carry license. There used to be that room where you had to carry a dime in your pocket, right? Back in the phone booth days. Yeah, you had to carry a dime, just in case you had to use your weapon, right? You were able to make a phone call. That's not true. Or it might have been back then, but we don't have any phone booths. Anybody see a phone booth lately?
Pascarilla Center has payphones.
Do they have a payphone?
Yep.
Do you actually have to put money in it?
I don't know.
We had one.
Good question.
They can go in the bar and
All right, so that's about carrying. That's about having that firearm on you. You should get some training. You should know what you're doing with it. You shouldn't let it make you reckless. It's not for hotheads. All that good stuff, right? Now we're going to talk a little bit about, we talked about the places you can carry and where you can't carry. We're going to talk about some very important laws dealing with the state of Pennsylvania. And these laws are relatively new when it comes to laws. You know, the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Grounds, probably around 10 years old. Prior to that, prior to these two laws, you had a duty to retreat. You had a duty to retreat. Even if you were in your own home, you had a duty to retreat. So these laws kind of fundamentally changed that we no longer carry that full duty to retreat. So those two laws are the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground. So we're going to talk about each of those and kind of try and make sense. I'm not going to talk in lawyerese. I'm going to talk in plain English. All right? So this is a presentation that our DA's office uses, and it's kind of creepy, right? You got a guy shooting the Easter Bunny, saying it was dark, he felt threatened, right? And come to think of it, the Easter Bunny is kind of creepy. Right? Wouldn't you agree? I think the Easter Bunny, now Santa Claus, he's pretty cool, but the Easter Bunny is creepy. So the first thing we'll talk about with the Castle Doctrine is the first thing that you need in order for the Castle Doctrine to come into effect for you is you need to have clean hands. Now I don't mean you can't be an auto mechanic or a coal miner, right, who usually have dirty hands. You have to have clean hands because you can't be committing a crime. You can't be running a drug house in your home and expect the Castle Doctrine to defend you. You can't be running a brothel in your home and expect the Castle Doctrine to defend you. All right? So you have to be not committing a crime. That's what we mean by clean hands. The second thing is that a person is in the process of unlawfully and forcefully entering your dwelling, your residence, or your vehicle. Now we're going to break this down. We're going to break it down so you guys understand. That person is in the process. It doesn't mean that he has succeeded. He's in the process of doing this. And when we talk about unlawfully, someone who is not permitted to be there. Okay? So you can't invite your neighbor over, the one you don't like, and try and use the Castle Doctrine. All right? Because you're inviting them over. Or your roommate that you may not like. Or your spouse that you don't like. So it's somebody who would not be permitted to be there. The next thing we'll talk about is what is forcefully? Who can give me an example of a forceful, unlawful forceful entry into your home?
Breaking a window and trying to come in.
Breaking a window and trying to come in. Kicking the door in, right? That would be an example. How about they just lift the window? They didn't break it. It was unlocked. They just lift the window up.
They're still coming in unlawfully.
Yeah.
It's still entering.
That is considered forcefully.
How about an unlocked door?
It could be considered forcefully. All right? It could be. So, even though it says forcefully, it doesn't necessarily mean they have a battering ram or a sledgehammer and they're trying to knock down your door. All right? It definitely helps you if they're trying to knock down the door. It helps you to be covered by that because there's no question. There's no gray. Right? And the person is entering your dwelling. What is a dwelling?
Your home.
Your home. What else?
Garage.
Your garage. With you in it.
Hotel room?
Hotel room. Your camper. Your tent.
Your car?
Vehicles are specified there.
Yeah.
But if you have an RV, your RV is your dwelling.
Vehicle.
All right?
Basically anywhere.
So a dwelling could be a lot. It could be your business, the place where you work. Right? Now, when we talk about dwellings, somebody mentioned your garage. If your garage is attached to your home, it's a dwelling. If you are inside your garage, it's a dwelling. If your garage is detached and somebody is breaking into your garage, the castle doctrine does not apply.
What if I'm standing in my garage?
If you're inside your garage, it may be a dwelling at that point because you were there. There's a person present there. But if it's somebody breaking into your car in your driveway or breaking into your detached garage or your shed, it doesn't include it. We'll talk about it more once we go over a couple of more. All right? The third thing, you reasonably believe that deadly force is necessary to avoid death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, or sexual assault. The law almost automatically gives you that if you were inside your dwelling. All right? If somebody's breaking in your house, is there a good chance that you may be killed, sexually assaulted, kidnapped, assaulted? Yes. So the law almost gives you if they're breaking into your dwelling. So what if they're breaking into your vehicle that you're sitting in? We've seen that during those riots, right? During some of those riots, you've seen people getting drug out of their vehicle, beat up, carjacked, all right? You would have to say, if it's not some guy at the corner that's trying to wash your window or something, right? Anybody been to New York? Anybody ever pull up at an intersection in New York and a guy comes out with a spray bottle? He wants you to pay him to wash your window, right? Now, would you be in fear of death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, sexual assault with the guy with a water bottle?
No.
Probably not. So shooting him through the windshield, you might have a problem. All right? So again, if you reasonably believe that you're at risk of death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, sexual assault. There have been incidents where people made big mistakes. For example, if the Girl Scout come up to your door and started pounding really hard on your door because she got to sell these cookies, right? Is it reasonable to believe that she's going to assault you, kidnap you, sexually assault you, or murder you? Not really reasonable, right? So you would probably not, you definitely would not, be justified in using deadly force against that Girl Scout. Right?
police show up and you're upset, you shot somebody, and the person says, I thought he was gonna rob me, you're not covered. And that officer can report that.
And the officer may document that you believed he was going to rob you. But with the Castle Doctrine, if somebody is unlawfully and forcefully entering your home, it almost automatically gives you that it's for one of those other reasons. But you have to believe that I was in danger. If somebody's robbing me, is there a chance that they're going to hurt me?
Yes.
Is there a chance they may kill me?
Yes.
Right?
You don't have to see a weapon.
Not for the Castle Doctrine.
Okay.
All right? Not for the Castle Doctrine. Is there anything up there that says the guy has to be armed? Is there anything up there that says I got home and I seen this guy carrying my TV out my back door, so I shot him? Is there anything on there that says that you can do it to protect property? No. No. So even with the Castle Doctrine, you can't do it to protect property. And that's why if somebody's out there breaking in your car or breaking in your garage, you're not justified in using deadly force.
So let them break in your car, let them break in your garage.
Yes, call the police. Be a good witness.
But like we saw in New York, there was people that were getting their windshields punched in
Mhm.
and smashed in.
If you're in your car,
The person who was sitting in
no,
the
if you're
car
in your car, it's a different
down.
story. If,
I know, but the person sitting in the car.
no, if you're in your car, it's a totally different story. You're justified because at that point, if they're breaking into your car,
But that didn't happen up there.
well, that's New York.
They.
In Texas, you're allowed to use deadly force to protect your property. We ain't in Texas. All right? You can actually call your neighbor in Texas and say, watch my house. And he can use deadly force to protect your property. New York is totally different. In Pennsylvania, if you're sitting in your car and somebody's forcibly entering your car and you reasonably believe that you're at risk of death, serious bodily, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about stand your ground. That's the next thing.
Does that include your property, not inside, outside?
It includes anything outside of your castle. And,
Okay.
and when we talk about the Castle Doctrine, that's your castle. That's where you live. So you have a lot of special rights when it comes to your castle, right? There's an exception. Exceptions, because every law has some exceptions. You can't use the Castle Doctrine against law enforcement. All right? You can't say, you can't come in here, or you're forcibly trying to enter my home. That's an exception. It's not something that you can use. And basically, the Castle Doctrine is a statute that's going to defend you for the use of that force. You can't use it in against law enforcement or in child custody. All right? If it's a child custody issue, the Castle Doctrine isn't going to stand. Now, you still have your fundamental rights to self-protection, to self-defense. These are just additional things when we talk about stand your ground and the Castle Doctrine. So any questions on stand your ground? Or I'm sorry, on Castle Doctrine. And again, once we finish, if you have questions, I'll be up here, you can come ask them. When we talk stand your ground, remember I said you had that duty to retreat? Inside your home, you had a duty to retreat, but outside there was even more of a duty. If you could get away, you had to get away. All right? If there was a way that you could escape, you had to escape. And it kind of eliminated or kind of changed that duty to retreat. So when we're talking stand your ground, the first thing that has to apply is you are legally permitted to be where you are. You can't be trespassing. You can't be on somebody's property where you're not supposed to be and use stand your ground. So you have to legally be where you're allowed to be. You can't be committing a crime. Just like with Castle Doctrine, you have to have clean hands. So you can't be committing some type of a crime and expect to stand your ground to defend you. And you are legally possessing a firearm. All right? You're legal to possess the firearm. It's a legal firearm. and you're following all the rules when it comes to your firearm. The second thing is the attacker has to have what is or what appears to be a deadly weapon. You remember early on when we were talking to concealed carry, I said about displaying your firearm, and I said it might come back to hurt you, right? So if you're in this verbal confrontation with someone and you flash your firearm, are you not now displaying what is or what appears to be a deadly weapon? Are you not now giving that person the protections to stand your ground?
Yes.
Right. So if you inadvertently, you start flashing your firearm out there to somebody, now you're starting to fill some of those voids. So what is a deadly weapon?
Anything that
Anything
could
can
cause
assault.
you that kind of harm.
Yeah, anything, any object that could possibly cause death, right?
Yes.
So baseball bat. A baseball bat, would that be considered a deadly weapon? Could be, yes, absolutely. Tire iron? Crowbar? Obviously the gun or a knife, right? But there are actually case laws out there that say a boot is a deadly weapon.
High heels.
What about the size of that person compared to the size of you? Or how many of them there are compared to you? If you're a woman and you're 5'2" and you weigh 100 pounds, could a guy who is 6'4", 230 pounds, could he be considered a deadly weapon to you?
He could.
Could be. Right? Could be. So that the attacker has to have what is or what appears to be. So what if we find out afterwards that's not a real gun? It was a cap gun. Does it matter?
No.
No, because it appears to be. All right? And then again, you have to reasonably believe that deadly force is immediately necessary to protect yourself or others. Or others against death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, or sexual assault. What that does, that allows you to put yourself in that person's shoes. So if we're leaving Walmart, and we had our gun concealed, Walmart never knew we had it, and that's, they don't know you have it, they don't know you have it, right? And we're leaving Walmart, and as we're walking to our car, we see this 6'4", 230-pound male strangling, got this 5'3", 100-pound female by her neck. Is she at risk of death?
Yes.
Can we defend her?
Yes.
Or you have these instances where an active shooter comes into a place that you're at. Would you be permitted, understand your ground, to use your firearm to protect yourself and others? Yes. Now that's completely your decision whether or not you want to do that. All right? That would be up to you.
You have a lot of exposure in that situation under civil law.
Yeah, you may. You may. And that's why it may be up to you. All right? You may be opening yourself up to some type of civil liability. And believe me, even if you're 100% justified in using your firearm against somebody, that person can turn around and sue you. All right? They can sue you, even if you're completely justified. The law says you can sue anybody for anything, anytime. And there's been incidents where law enforcement have used deadly force against people who were extremely dangerous criminals. Extremely dangerous. And we were justified, but we got sued. They may win, they may not win, but you're opening yourself up.
And wasn't there a case in Kansas where like a boy was going to someone's house to pick up their sister, but they went to the wrong house, knocked on the door, and the man shot him?
Mm-hmm.
So
There's those cases. There was a case, I forget where it was. I think it was up in the northern part of the United States, Michigan, up around that area, where a young girl was out partying, had gotten intoxicated, broke down, went to a house, her car was broke down, it's late in the middle of the night, she goes and starts beating on the door, trying to get help. A guy shot through the door and killed her. He was charged. All right, he was arrested. All right, because was it reasonable?
Yeah.
Right, and that's what they're going to look at. And we could what if forever, the what ifs. And really, anytime you display or you use your firearm, chances are there's going to be a police investigation. All right, there's going to be a police investigation. Just like if we use our firearm, there's an investigation. All right, I've investigated cases, and we're going to talk about a couple. I've investigated cases where homeowners have used their firearm, and they've protected themselves, and they've taken lives. All right, and the ones that I've investigated, they've been justified. They were justified in doing so. All right. I had a case down in the city where a guy had left his apartment. He lived on a second floor apartment. Concealed carry guy had his gun, carried with him all the time, just like he's supposed to do. He leaves his apartment. He goes downstairs to his neighbor's apartment. He's down there for about 45 minutes visiting his neighbor. He comes back up, walks in his apartment, and finds a guy in his bedroom, which he encounters as he's coming down the hallway. The guy had broken through a window, crawled through a window, and was in his apartment, burglarizing his apartment. They get into a struggle. He pulls his firearm. He shoots the guy. Guy goes down. He stands there, does exactly what he's supposed to do, calls law enforcement. We come. We investigate the incident. The guy who broke in is charged. The homeowner is not charged. All right? But again, there's going to be an investigation. And one or two things may change the outcome of it, but he was completely justified in what he did. Right? And what even made it more justifying is that bedroom where the guy was coming from, he had multiple firearms. The homeowner had multiple firearms in there. He didn't know if he had one. If that guy found one of them, then he had it. All right? Here's another example. I used to deal with this guy when I was with the city. He ends up going to his estranged girlfriend's apartment down in the Oakhurst Homes. He breaks into her apartment. She's in the apartment, and he begins to assault her. She had a firearm. She pulled her firearm and she shot him. She hit him in the neck. He continued to fight with her. So you're going to see, if you take my class, you just don't shoot him once. All right? So he continued to fight with her, and he ended up getting her firearm off of her. And he tried to shoot her with her own firearm. But God's luck, the firearm malfunctioned. He runs out the house. Police are called. We apprehend him. He is arrested. She's not arrested. All right? Here's a sad story. This is a sad story. This one happened up in Scalp Level Borough. You guys know where that's up? Up by Wimber? This individual was having some mental health issues. He was having some mental health issues, and during this day that this had happened, on 2 occasions, he had walked into people's homes up in Scalp Level. They knew him. They knew he was having mental health issues. They called the police. The police came, and they transported him to a medical facility to be treated. And on both occasions, the medical facility released him. This woman and her husband come home from an evening out. They go to their bedroom. They're laying down, they're getting ready to go to bed, and they hear a noise. It sounded like something at the basement door. So the husband gets his firearm and a flashlight, and he goes down, and he goes outside to go around the building to check the basement door. In the meantime, the woman armed herself with her firearm, and she stayed on the second floor. As the husband was outside, an individual comes up the steps to the second floor. The woman warns him. Did I say anything about you have to give warning?
No.
But she warns him to stop. She has a firearm. He continues to come. She fires 2 shots and takes the man's life. She has to live with that. All right? She has to live with that. But she was completely justified in what she did, based on the Castle Doctrine. a guy unlawfully and forcefully entered her home, and she was in reasonable fear of death, serious bodily injury, kidnapping, or sexual assault. She was cleared by our district attorney's office after a short period of time. She didn't commit a crime. All right? Any questions?
If you're in your home, somebody breaks in, and you got your gun, if you, oh, please don't.
Whoops. Sorry.
Should you shoot to just injure the man, or you shoot to kill?
What I teach is we shoot to stop the action. We shoot to stop this guy. All right? And that's what law enforcement is trained to do. We don't shoot to kill or shoot to wound. We shoot to stop the action of the aggressor. All right? And in my instruction, I tell people shoot for center mass of the available target. So what is that? All right? On a human being, this is center mass. And I can go through statistics on how many times rounds are shot by police officers, trained police officers, and they miss their target. All right? So I would teach you to shoot center mass of your available target. And if this is what I can see, this is what I'm shooting at. If I can see his head, that's what I'm shooting at. If I see his leg, I'm shooting for the center of his leg. All right? So we don't shoot to kill, we don't shoot to wound. We shoot to stop the advancement of that aggressor is what we do. And we continue to shoot until the advancement stops and he's no longer a danger. All right? And that's why you'll see oftentimes in police shootings, you know, and the media love to rip us up, right? They love to say, oh, they shot the guy 14 times. Right? They love to say that because it sensationalizes. But the only reason he might have been shot 14 times is because 13 times didn't stop him. Once that person is no longer a threat, once the threat is stopped, you stop. Once you do that, now you're breaking it, you're going over the line. All right? But good question. Good question. We don't shoot to kill, we don't shoot to wound. We shoot to stop the threat. All right?
About a warning shot.
I wouldn't suggest a warning shot. You're responsible, even you as a citizen. As a citizen, you're responsible for every round that you would fire. Just like law enforcement. We're responsible. We don't fire warning shots in the air. You know, that might have been back in the Western days. But we don't fire warning shots. So every round that would leave your barrel, you're responsible for where it goes, right? So if I'm firing a warning shot in the air and it goes through some elderly lady's apartment window and hits her, I'm responsible for that. So no, I would say no warning shots. And even again, when you're talking the Castle Doctrine and stand your ground, did either of those say we have to give verbal warning? But I'm going to teach you to do that, right? If you take my class, I teach you verbally challenge your target. Tell them what you want them to do. Tell them to stop. Because that police investigation that's going to happen, it looks a whole lot better for you if when the police go and they canvass the Walmart parking lot and the people that were there and they're saying, yeah, I don't know what was going on. I heard this woman hollering, stop, and I heard gunshots. Goes to your benefit. All right? It's going to be like, hey, she went above and beyond. She didn't have to warn him. She did. All right? Good question, though.
I was always under the impression that the guy had to enter your house. No, on a stoop. In other words, he's banging on a stoop, he's waving a gun, they're going to kill you, all that stuff. But he didn't get through the threshold yet. You can't pick him off until he does. Is that correct?
No. And you've seen what the Castle Doctrine said. That they are in the process of forcefully and unlawfully entering your home, your dwelling, your vehicle. You don't have to let them get in. People used to say, oh, if you shoot them on a porch, drag them in. Right? You shoot the guy on a porch, drag him in the house. No, don't drag him in the house. If you shoot him on the porch, you shoot him on the porch. You let him where he's at. Because we're going to see that you drug him in the house. Right? No, and again, and especially in that scenario, and again, there's a lot of what ifs, and we could be here for 3 more hours talking about what ifs. But in your case, you say you got a guy out on the porch with a gun trying to kick your door in, saying he's going to kill you. I'm not waiting for him to get in.
Well, I didn't think so, but
Right.
like I said.
No, and that used to be, that used to be the old saying, hey, you shoot him on a porch, drag him in the house. Right?
Stand your ground law, still on your property outside.
Right.
Not necessarily off, well, it would include off. Okay.
Yep. Stand your ground when you're outside of your house, your dwelling, your vehicle, right? So anything outside of your home or something, you would then fall to stand your ground.
I don't need to be level as, we're from another state, as you met, and their laws are just a little bit different. I'm trying to.
And again, if you live in Florida part of the time, you got to understand Florida law. Now, Florida does have stand your ground,
Yes.
and they have Castle Doctrine. Actually, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but he had shot he was a security guard. He had shot the younger individual, and that's what he claimed. It was stand your ground, and he was acquitted on that.
In Florida, I can't go to a bar with a firearm.
Really?
Yes, no.
I don't know if I like Florida that much.
Anywhere where they serve alcohol, no firearm. That's why I'm trying to mind stuff.
Right. And again, each law is going to have their own set of rules. What we talked mainly about was Pennsylvania rules. So if you're going to travel somewhere else, understand those. Do you guys live in Florida and Pennsylvania?
No, we're here full time.
We're here.
You're here full time. You left Florida?
Yep. Don't
What?
say why.
We won't say what.
95-degree heat for 10 months out of the year.
That's why you come up here in the summer and down there in the winter, right?
No, because I'm a good husband, and she was born and raised here.
You are a good husband.
Years ago, 5 years ago, across the country,
He's gonna be us here.
Okay.
like you said, some states don't recognize Pennsylvania license. But if you go across the country, go through state, how do you know?
Well, you got to educate yourself on your trip. Where am I going? Who has reciprocity with Pennsylvania? Where am I legally allowed to have my firearm? So educate yourself if you're making that trip across the country. Now, if you're on that motorcycle,
What's that for?
you can unload the firearm,
Travel.
place it in one part of your bike with your saddlebag, put the ammunition in another one. It's completely separate. But again, know those states and know what your requirements are as a firearms owner if you're ever stopped. One thing we didn't talk about when it comes to traveling. Don't go to Canada with a handgun.
No.
All right? Don't go to Canada with a handgun. Canada's a different country, different rules. In Canada, I was just up there this spring on a bear hunt. One of the guys that I went with, he was wanted to hunt with a 12-gauge slug gun. He forgot his ammunition. We couldn't buy ammunition in Canada. You need a permit to buy ammunition in Canada. All right? Our guides have a permit, but they're not allowed to buy it for us. So he had to bow hunt, and then once somebody got a bear, he was allowed to use their gun. All right? So if you're going to Canada, don't take a handgun there. You can take your rifle there. You have to declare it. You have to stop at the border. The paperwork you have to fill out. You got to pay them $20. You can take your rifle in. All right? But handguns are a no-no. If a cop pulls up, if I go up, like I know some cops that have been up in Niagara Falls for training, they decide they're going to go to the Canada side, their car's getting stripped. As soon as they know that's a law enforcement officer, they're pulling them over, they're going to strip your car because they think you're going to have a gun. All right, so don't go there. Mexico, kind of like New Jersey. I didn't leave anything in Mexico. Don't really need to go there, right? If you're going to fly, if you're going to travel and you want to fly with your firearm, contact the airline that you're going to be flying with. ask them what their procedure is for you to fly with a firearm. You'll have to check it. All right? There's restrictions on what it has to be in. It has to be in a locked container. The ammunition, they got restrictions on ammunition, on how much you can carry and how it has to be packaged. But if you contact the airline you're going to be flying with and you say, hey, I want to take a firearm, what is your regulation? They'll walk you through what you have to do to be able to fly with it. All right?
It's also true on cruising.
Yeah.
On cruise?
Cruise lines do not take a gun.
Yeah, I went on a
And
cruise
no
one time. That's the only time I think I didn't have a gun.
You don't take a gun, be sure you don't have ammunition.
That's right.
Don't have ammunition?
You can't, trust me.
You can't have ammunition in your bag.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
If someone's forcibly breaking into my home and the access I have is to the gun that is licensed to my husband,
It's perfectly fine.
there you go.
Perfectly fine. And that's a good question. If the firearm that she uses is registered to her husband, and by the way, you can carry your firearms, your husband's firearm outside of the house, as long as you have a concealed carry license. All right? So that was a good question. If somebody's breaking into her house and the firearm belongs to her husband, can she use it? Absolutely. Question back there?
Yeah, so for Pennsylvania, if you don't have a concealed carry, if you're taking your weapon in your vehicle to drive somewhere, to practice shoot, whatever the case may be, the separate compartment, like I have two vehicles, they have two separate glove boxes. Is that considered separate?
That would be separate compartments. What you can't have is, I open up this bag and it's readily available to me. All right, and there's some case law out there that say if you have a shooter's bag that has more than one compartment, you have your firearm in one of those compartments and you have your ammunition in another compartment in that shooter bag, that could be separate compartments. All right, play it safe. Put the firearm in one part of the car and the ammunition in another part of the car. All right, but yeah, just separate compartments. But get a concealed carry license, then you don't have to do that. You just drive to the range, right?
It's so easy.
Okay, well, that's true. That's true. Does the clip have to be unloaded?
So you go to
No.
The clip can be loaded.
Yes. Yeah, you can have ammunition in the magazine, but the magazine cannot be in the firearm. And if I have my magazine in the center console, and I have my gun locked in the glove box, separate.
Is that keyboard locked or just in glove box?
Well, no, it doesn't necessarily need to be locked. But if I have my, because I'm never gonna carry mine in the glove box, right? How many people store their firearms in their car? Come on, tell the truth. Don't ever store your firearm in a car. Never. I mean, if you got to go into one of those restricted places, yeah, temporarily put it there. But don't make it a habit of, I always got this gun in my glove box. Because somebody's going to steal it. Because one day, that unfortunate day that you finally, I always lock my car, but that day, you would not imagine the number of firearms that are stolen here in Cambria County on a weekly or monthly basis, out of vehicles.
You're doing that now, aren't you, with Richmond and West Hills?
Yeah, I mean, so never store it in there, right?
It's a specific case. You go to UPMC Presbyterian in Pittsburgh for procedure. The way the procedure works, you pull up a valley in the car, which is part of the state's obligation. If you secure your firearm in a TSA rated box that's anchored in the vehicle, you put it in there with the ammunition, everything, lock it, it's secured in the vehicle. Are you legally safe in Pennsylvania?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and that's a good question. If you know that somebody else is going to be getting into your vehicle, unless you have a way of really securing it, locking it in, like you said, you have a box that's secured to your vehicle, you can put it in there, nobody's going to be able to get in it. I wouldn't just stick it in the glove box, right? Because you don't know who the schmuck is that's going to be driving your car. You don't know if he's even going to lock it, right? So, yeah, definitely make sure you secure your firearms even at home, really, even at home, and we talk about that in my classes, securing your firearm at home. Be a responsible gun owner, right? Now, I'm not saying go out and buy a 1,000-pound safe for that 2 handguns that you have, but if you buy a lockbox and you can affix it to something, or even if it's just locked, right? It prevents somebody from getting it that shouldn't have it and having quick access to it, right?
Got one of those 4 small.
Yeah, even those small ones. And then they got them out there, they're pretty fancy. You touch them, they read your fingerprints, or you press buttons, so you can get quick access to it if you need it, all right? But even at home, be responsible with your firearm. Yeah, I'm one of those guys that, I like to have them quickly available, and I'd have them stashed all through my house, because you never know, right? But what if my grandkids are over? Is that a good idea?
No, they get put away.
Right, yeah, so be responsible with your firearm. You don't want the wrong person to get it, whether it be a child, a grandchild, or the bad guy, right? Because we all know that houses get broken into all the time, and the things they're looking for, drugs, money, and guns, right? If you have prescription drugs, they're going to take those. If you have money, they're going to take that. They're too lazy to really want to carry your TVs out anymore, right?
You can't take them off.
That's work, because I got to carry this thing. Then I got to try and sell it to somebody. And nowadays we have them, they're like 80 inches. Right?
Where you gonna put it?
Yeah. So, be responsible with your firearm, both at home and in your vehicles. Don't let them just lay around. We don't want them getting legs and walking. All right? Any other questions?
One that you might not know about, maybe it's for a lawyer. To let weapons to your children, do they have to be registered? If my handguns are registered to me, and I die, and my son and daughter pick these up, is that legal?
Yeah, it's legal. It is legal.
Do they have to register them?
Well, they are registered. They're registered to you.
Exactly.
Now, what I would suggest is, just wait, what I would suggest is in your estate, whoever is in charge of your estate, they have the ability to then transfer that firearm to whomever they want to, all right? So it's registered to you. It is not illegal, even though you are no longer with us, it's not illegal for your child to have that firearm that's registered to dad, all right? But it's a good idea to have that child register that firearm in their name.
Okay.
That way, if that firearm ends up missing, somebody steals it, and we recover it, we know who to go to say, hey, we recovered your firearm. All right? Because if you're dead and we run it and it says this guy's deceased,
you're going to destroy it.
Right.
Okay. For me to lend.
Oh, you can lend a firearm to your child.
To my child.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Immediate family.
While I'm still alive.
Yep. Okay. You can lend it to your child. You can lend it to your spouse.
Okay.
All right.
You know about grandchildren?
Lending it to them or giving it to them?
Giving them when I'm deceased.
Yeah, it would be the same process. Whoever has handling your estate,
okay,
they would transfer it into that grandchild's name.
Okay.
Right? But if we run it and it's registered to someone, then we can contact that person and they say, yeah, I reported that stolen 3.5 years ago when I lived in Mississippi.
Even with long guns?
Yes.
Okay.
All right? So even though you're not required by law to transfer and register long guns, it's a smart idea in case it ever got stolen. Because if not, we're going to run it and it's going to come back to whoever.
The deceased guy, and they're going to destroy it.
Right. Any other questions?
I bought a weapon, years and years ago, 35 or 40 years ago. Is there a way that I can check to see if that's still registered with the state?
I would say if you contacted an FFL, somebody who has an FFL license, they may be able to check to see if it's registered. But I think 30, I'm trying to think what the year was that we had actually started registering firearms. Anybody here know?
68, well,
Yeah, it was in the 60s when they started registering, it
Yeah, because-
required
I
it.
was saying, I bought mine in the sixties.
Yeah, but I would say if you want to see if it's still registered to you, if you contacted an FFL, they may be able to give you that information. All right, somebody who has a federal firearms license. Unfortunately, I'm really restricted on what I can run and who the information, what information I can give to you. I can find out, but I'm not allowed to tell you.
how about the sale of a handgun to a private individual?
Has to be transferred. In the state of Pennsylvania, you have to go to an FFL, they'll fill out the paperwork transferring that firearm to the other.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Except if they're a family member.
I'm sorry.
You said I can.
Now, you can give it to them, yes, but I would suggest you still go through the
Okay,
process.
so it's still legal.
Right.
To give your family member a
Yep.
handgun.
But I would still go through that process. I would still go through the process of
So
having.
then when they give it back, I have to register it to myself
No,
again?
if you're just lending it to them, giving and lending are two different things.
Okay.
All right, if you're lending it to them, yeah, you can lend it to them. If you're giving it to them, it's a smart idea to transfer it to them.
Tom, I worked in Maryland, and when I was down there, I purchased a 22. It's registered in Maryland, but I don't believe I ever did anything up here in Pennsylvania.
And I don't believe you're required to. It's registered
It's down
firearm.
there.
If I ran that firearm through a system that we have,
Okay.
it's nationwide.
Good enough.
Well, let's give Tom a round of applause. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from today, is that when your local state representative comes to your door, knocks on the door, please do not shoot. But I hope we all learned something here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to follow Pennsylvania's laws. We have books in the back if you need more information. We have the Pennsylvania law books back there. We have books on Castle Doctrine. We have targets and different things. Feel free to stop back there and talk about what goes on in Harrisburg, anything like that. I'll answer your questions. I know a lot of people are getting restless and want to leave, but I'll be here walking around. So if you have a question for me, just come up and find me. And
We don't have that much time.
well, I'm trying to be considerate of everybody else this
I don't
time.
want to know what's going on.
So thank you for coming, and I hope you learned something.